Please, Mom, just sign here. Daniel's voice was sweet like honey, just like when he was 7 years old asking for ice cream money. But now, at 35 years old, his strong hand pushed mine down on the pen. His wife, Rachel, held my other arm, so tight it hurt my old bones. We were sitting in the busy bank. People walked around us doing normal things. They had no idea what was happening to me at our little table. It's just paperwork, Mom. Daniel smiled for the security cameras. Just a small money transfer to fix some legal stuff. But I knew he was lying. I had seen the papers. This wasn't small. This was everything. My entire $50,000 in savings. All the money I had left after my husband Robert died 3 years ago. The bank's cold air blew over my head, but I felt hot and scared. The bright lights hurt my tired eyes. The sound of money-counting machines pounded in my head like hammers. Daniel smiled big for the cameras, like we were a happy family doing normal business. Rachel smiled too, but her fingers stayed locked on my arm like a trap. "Come on, Margaret," she whispered in my ear. Her breath smelled like cigarettes and old coffee. "Don't make this harder than it has to be. Think about Emma. Think about everything we've done for you." Everything they had done for me? The words burned in my throat like poison. I was the one who paid for Daniel's college. I was the one who gave them money for their house. I was the one who covered their bills when Daniel lost his job last year. $20,000 they never paid back. And now they were here, trying to steal the last thing I had. My life savings. The money Robert and I saved for 46 years of marriage. My hands shook as I held the black pen. The ink looked so dark and final on the white paper. One signature, and it would all be over. One signature, and I would have nothing left. If this story shocked you, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe for more stories that matter. Now let me tell you how I got trapped in this nightmare. Daniel leaned closer. His expensive cologne mixed with my fierce sweat. "Mom, trust me. It's for your own good. You can't handle this much money at your age." His words were like poison candy. Each word was chosen to make me give up. I looked around desperately. The young bank worker watched us from his window, but he seemed busy with other customers. An old woman waited in line, reading a magazine. A man in a business suit looked at his phone. Nobody noticed what was happening. Nobody saw that I was being robbed in broad daylight. In public. With smiles and loving words. Daniel squeezed my arm tighter. A small cry escaped from my throat. "Quiet," he said through his fake smile. "We don't want to make a scene, do we?" His eyes were cold like winter ice. For the first time in my life, I realized my own son could hurt me. Really hurt me. Rachel, my son's wife, sat there watching her husband hurt me. She did nothing to stop him. The wall clock said 3:15 in the afternoon. A normal Tuesday that had become the worst day of my life. I remembered how this morning started. Daniel had called me early, his voice full of fake worry. "Mom, we need to go to the bank today. There are important papers you have to sign. It's urgent." He didn't give me details. Daniel never gave me details. Just orders dressed up as please. The bank manager walked toward our table. He was an older man with kind eyes named Mr. Rodriguez. His professional smile gave me a tiny spark of hope. "Everything okay here?" he asked. "Can I help with anything?" This was my moment. My only chance. My heart beat so fast I thought it would explode. I quickly wrote on a small piece of paper on the table. "Help. I'm being forced. I don't want to sign." I folded the note and slipped it to Mr. Rodriguez when Daniel and Rachel were looking at the documents. Mr. Rodriguez opened the note quietly. I saw his eyes grow wide with shock. His calm face changed to controlled alarm. For a moment that felt like forever, our eyes met. In that instant, I knew he understood perfectly what was happening to me. Without saying a word, he pressed a button under his desk. The silent alarm. My heart felt calm for the first time all day. Someone was going to help me. But to understand how I ended up in this terrible situation, I need to tell you the whole story. I need you to understand who I was before I became this desperate old woman in a bank, silently begging for help. My name is Margaret Thompson. I am 69 years old. And all my life, I was the woman who always said yes. The woman who always gave money, always helped, and always sacrificed everything for my family. Especially for Daniel. I remember the day he was born like it was yesterday. It was a sunny spring morning. After 14 hours of painful labor, he finally came into the world. Small, perfect, with bright blue eyes like his father. I held him in my arms and made him a promise. He would never go without anything. He would always have my love, my support, and my protection. I kept that promise for 35 years. But now I realize I kept it too well. And that promise was about to destroy me completely. When Daniel was 5 years old, he wanted a red racing bike for his birthday. Not just any bike. The most expensive one in the toy store window. Please, Mommy, he cried with big tears rolling down his cheeks. All my friends have cool bikes. I'll be the only kid without one. That bike cost $250. Back then, that was like $1,000 to us. Robert and I were working 2 jobs each, barely paying for food and rent. But I couldn't say no to those sad blue eyes. Robert tried to stop me. Margaret, we can't afford this. Daniel needs to learn that we can't buy everything he wants. He's just a little boy, I said. I don't want him to feel different from his friends. I sold my grandmother's gold wedding ring to buy that bike. The ring was the only valuable thing I owned. It was worth more than money to me. But Daniel's happiness was worth more. When I gave him the bike, Daniel's face lit up like Christmas morning. He hugged me tight and said, "You're the best mommy in the whole world." Those words made selling the ring feel worth it. But that was my first mistake. My first time saying yes when I should have said no. When Daniel turned 10, he wanted designer sneakers. The kind that cost $150. Mom, the other kids will laugh at my cheap shoes, he whined. I'll be so embarrassed. Again, I said yes. I worked extra shifts at the hospital cafeteria, cleaning tables until midnight, my feet swollen and my back aching. When Daniel was 13, he wanted a gaming computer. $800. When he was 15, he wanted to go to an expensive summer camp. $2,000. When he was 16, he wanted a car. Not just any car. A nice car that would impress his friends. $8,000. Every single time, I said yes. Robert kept warning me. Margaret, you're spoiling him. Daniel needs to work for things. He needs to understand money doesn't grow on trees. I just want him to be happy, I always replied. I want him to have the things I never had as a child. My own childhood was hard. My parents were very poor. I wore the same dress to school for months. Other kids made fun of my old shoes with holes in them. I promised myself my son would never feel that shame. But I was creating a different problem. A bigger problem. Daniel learned that crying and begging would get him anything he wanted. He learned that Mom would always find the money somehow. He never learned the word no. When Daniel graduated high school, he announced he was going to college. Not the affordable state school nearby. Oh no. Daniel wanted the most expensive private university in the state. Mom, it's my dream school, he said with tears in his eyes. I can't go to some cheap public school. What will people think? My whole future depends on this. The tuition was $45,000 per year. For 4 years. That's $180,000 total. Robert and I had maybe $5,000 in savings. Daniel, we simply can't afford this, Robert said firmly. The state school has an excellent program. You can get a great education there. Daniel threw a fit like a little child. He slammed doors. He refused to eat dinner. He gave us the silent treatment for days. Finally, he came to me crying. Mom, don't you love me? Don't you want me to succeed in life? This degree will help me get a great job. I'll pay you back everything, I promise. That promise sounded so sincere. So honest. I believed him. Robert was furious when I told him we would take out a loan against our house. Margaret, this is insane, he shouted. We'll be paying this off until we die. What if something happens to our health? What if we lose our jobs? Daniel will pay us back, I said. He promised. He's a good boy. He loves us. Robert shook his head sadly. You're going to regret this, Margaret. Mark my words. But I had already decided. I signed the loan papers that put our home at risk. For 4 years, I worked double shifts. I cleaned office buildings at night after working at the hospital all day. My hands were raw from scrubbing. My knees hurt from getting on the floor to clean. I was exhausted every single day. But it was all worth it when Daniel graduated with honors in business. I cried with pride at the ceremony, watching my handsome son in his cap and gown. "Thank you, Mom," Daniel whispered when he hugged me. "I'll make you proud. I'll pay you back every penny, just like I promised." I thought my sacrificing days were finally over. I thought Daniel would now take care of himself. I was so wrong. 6 months after graduation, Daniel called with exciting news. "Mom, I met the most amazing girl. Her name is Rachel. She's beautiful and smart and perfect. I think she's the one." Daniel had met Rachel at a bar downtown. She was pretty, I had to admit. Long blonde hair, nice smile, fancy clothes. But there was something cold in her eyes that made me uncomfortable. When Rachel first came to our house for dinner, the first thing she said wasn't "nice to meet you" or "thank you for having me." Her first words were, "Wow, this house is huge. Is it paid off?" That should have been a giant red flag. But Daniel was so happy, so in love, that I ignored my gut feeling. 3 months later, Daniel announced they were engaged. "We want to have the wedding next summer," Daniel said excitedly. Rachel found the perfect venue. "It's going to be magical." The venue cost $15,000 just to rent for one day. The flowers were $3,000. The dress was $2,000. The photographer was $4,000. The band was $5,000. The total cost? $35,000. "Daniel," I said carefully, "that's an enormous amount of money. Maybe you could have a smaller, simpler wedding." Rachel's face turned angry. "Simple? Margaret, I'm only getting married once in my life. I deserve to have my dream wedding. Don't you want Daniel to be happy?" Daniel nodded eagerly. "Mom, Rachel's right. This is the most important day of our lives. We can't have some cheap, embarrassing wedding." Robert was getting sicker by then. His diabetes was getting worse. We needed money for his medications and doctor visits. "We can't afford this, Daniel," I said firmly. "You'll have to find another way." Daniel's face crumpled. He started crying right there in our kitchen. "Mom, please. I'll never ask you for anything again. This is it. After this, Rachel and I will be completely independent. We won't need any help ever again." Another promise. Another lie. But I didn't know that yet. I took out another loan. I put our house at even more risk. The wedding was beautiful. Rachel looked like a princess in her expensive dress. Daniel looked handsome in his designer tuxedo. But I noticed something during the ceremony. When they said their vows, Rachel's eyes weren't looking at Daniel with love. She was looking at the expensive decorations, counting the cost, calculating the value. And Daniel? He wasn't looking at Rachel either. He was looking at the wealthy guests, figuring out who might be useful to him later. I should have known then that this marriage wasn't about love. It was about money. And I was their main source of supply. After their expensive honeymoon to Hawaii, another $6,000 I had to pay, Daniel and Rachel moved into a tiny apartment. For exactly 6 months, I thought they had finally grown up. I thought they would stand on their own feet. I was so wrong. The phone calls started again. Always urgent. Always an emergency. "Mom, the refrigerator broke and we can't afford to fix it." "Mom, Rachel's car needs new brakes or it's not safe to drive." "Mom, Daniel got sick and missed work. We can't pay rent this month." It was always $300 here, $800 there. Small amounts that seemed manageable. But when I added them up later, I realized I had given them over $15,000 in their first year of marriage. Robert was getting sicker. His medicine cost $400 every month. Sometimes I had to choose between buying his pills or giving Daniel money for another emergency. I chose Daniel every time. I will regret that choice for the rest of my life. 2 years into their marriage, Daniel called with big news. "Mom, Rachel and I found the perfect house. It's everything we ever dreamed of. The house was in the fanciest neighborhood in town. 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms, a huge kitchen, and a swimming pool. It was beautiful. It was also completely out of their reach. The house cost $280,000. Daniel, that's wonderful, I said carefully. Have you been approved for a mortgage? There was silence on the phone. Then Daniel laughed nervously. Well, that's the thing, Mom. We have a tiny problem with our credit. Nothing serious. Just a few late payments on some credit cards. The bank wants us to put down $50,000 as a down payment. My heart sank. Daniel, do you have $50,000? Another silence. Not exactly. But Mom, this house is an investment. It's not like we're throwing money away. The value will go up every year. We'll make money on this house. I knew where this conversation was heading. I had heard this tone before. Daniel, I don't have that kind of money to give you. But Mom, his voice turned whiny, like when he was 5 years old. You have your savings account. You have the money Dad's life insurance will pay someday. You could just borrow it to us temporarily.
Borrow.
That word made me angry. Daniel, you have never paid back a single dollar of all the money I've given you over the years. The college loan, the wedding, all those emergencies. Not $1. That's different, Mom, Daniel said quickly. Those were gifts to help me get started in life. This is a loan. A real loan. Rachel and I will sign papers. We'll pay you back with interest. 5% interest. Rachel got on the phone. Her voice was sweet as candy. Margaret, honey, we would never ask if this wasn't important. This house is perfect for when we have children. Don't you want grandchildren? Don't you want them to grow up in a nice, safe neighborhood? Grandchildren. She knew exactly how to pull my heartstrings. Robert was against it from the start. Margaret, this is madness, he said when I told him. We only have $75,000 total in our savings. If you give them $50,000, we'll only have $25,000 left. What if I get sicker? What if we have an emergency? They promised to pay it back, Robert. With interest. Robert looked at me with such sadness in his eyes. When have they ever kept a promise about money, Margaret? When? I couldn't answer that question. Because the answer was never. But I went to the bank anyway. I withdrew $50,000 from our life savings. $50,000 that Robert and I had saved, penny by penny, over 20 years of marriage. When I handed Daniel the check, he hugged me tight. You're the best mother in the world, Rachel, and I will never forget this. We'll pay you back within 2 years, I promise. You'll see. They moved into their dream house the next month. It was beautiful. They threw a big housewarming party and invited all their friends. Everyone was impressed. But I noticed something at that party. Daniel and Rachel were bragging about their new house like they had worked and saved for it. Like they had earned it through hard work. They never mentioned that their mother and mother-in-law had paid for everything. 6 months later, I called Daniel to ask about the loan payments. Oh, Mom, about that, Daniel said casually. We're having some trouble right now. Rachel wants to redo the kitchen, and my job isn't paying as much as I hoped. Can we wait a few more months? A few more months turned into a year. A year turned into 2 years. I never saw a single payment, not even $1. Meanwhile, Robert's health got worse and worse. The diabetes was damaging his kidneys. He needed expensive treatments. Our insurance didn't cover everything. I had to take out a loan against our house to pay for Robert's medical bills. The same house I had already put at risk twice before for Daniel's college and wedding. Margaret, Robert said weakly from his hospital bed, you need to ask Daniel for some of that money back. We need it now. I called Daniel that night. Daniel, I hate to ask, but Dad is really sick. The medical bills are enormous. Could you possibly pay back even part of the house loan? Just $10,000 would help so much. Daniel's voice turned cold. Mom, are you serious? Rachel and I have our own bills to pay. The mortgage, the property taxes, the insurance. This house is expensive to maintain. We can barely afford it ourselves. But Daniel, that money was supposed to be a loan. Mom, let's be honest here. You gave us that money because you love us. Because you wanted us to be happy. You can't just take back a gift when it becomes inconvenient. A gift? A gift? Daniel, you promised to pay it back. You signed papers. Those papers don't mean anything, Mom. Your family. Family doesn't charge family interest on gifts. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. My own son was basically stealing from me, and he was making it sound like I was being unreasonable. 2 months later, Robert died. He died knowing that our life savings was gone. He died knowing that we had lost our financial security because I couldn't say a no to our son. His last words to me were, "I'm sorry, Margaret. Sorry I couldn't protect you from what's coming." I didn't understand what he meant then, but I understand now. After Robert's funeral, Daniel and Rachel came to the house. I thought they were there to comfort me in my grief. Instead, Daniel sat me down at the kitchen table with a serious expression. "Mom, we need to talk about your finances. You're all alone now. You don't understand money and investments like Rachel and I do. We think you should let us handle your money from now on." "What are you talking about, Daniel?" Rachel pulled out some official-looking papers. "Margaret, these documents will make Daniel your financial power of attorney. It means he can help you pay bills and manage your accounts. It's for your own protection." "Protection from what?" I wondered. "I can manage my own money," I said firmly. Daniel's face darkened. "Mom, you're 69 years old. You're all alone. What if you get sick? What if you make mistakes? We're just trying to help you." I refused to sign those papers. Daniel and Rachel left angry, but they didn't give up. Over the next year, the emergencies got bigger and more frequent. "Mom, I lost my job. We might lose the house if we can't make payments." "Mom, Rachel is pregnant. We need money for baby stuff." "Mom, Rachel had a miscarriage. The medical bills are huge." That last one broke my heart. I gave them $20,000 for the medical bills. Later, I found out Rachel was never pregnant. It was all a lie. By this time, my $75,000 in savings had shrunk to $50,000. I was living on Robert's small pension and Social Security. I was scared about my future, but I couldn't say no to Daniel. Then came the phone call that would change everything. "Mom," Daniel's voice was urgent and panicked. "I need you to come to the bank with me today. There are papers you need to sign. It's about protecting your money. If you don't sign today, you could lose everything." Something in his voice made me suspicious. "What kind of papers, Daniel?" "Just trust me, Mom. I'll explain everything at the bank. But we have to go now." That's how I ended up at that table, with Daniel and Rachel forcing me to sign away my last $50,000. My son wasn't trying to help me. He was trying to steal everything I had left. Now you understand how I ended up at that bank table, staring at papers that would steal my last $50,000. But I haven't told you the worst part yet. While Daniel held my arm and Rachel squeezed my wrist, I managed to read the documents they wanted me to sign. My blood turned to ice. This wasn't just a money transfer. These papers would make Daniel the owner of my bank account. They would give him complete control over my pension checks. They would let him sell my house without asking me. If I signed these papers, I would own nothing. I would have no money, no home, no way to take care of myself. I would be completely at Daniel's mercy. And based on the last 35 years, Daniel had no mercy at all. "Daniel," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady. "These papers say you're taking ownership of everything I have. My house, my bank account, even my pension." Daniel's grip tightened on my arm. "Mom, you're getting confused. You don't understand legal language. Just trust me." "But if I sign this, what will I live on? Where will I live?" Rachel leaned in close. Her sweet perfume couldn't hide the coldness in her voice. "Don't worry, Margaret. You can live with us. We'll take care of you." Live with them? In the house I had bought for them with my own money. The thought made me sick. I had seen how Daniel and Rachel treated people they didn't need anymore. Daniel's old friends who couldn't lend him money. Rachel's own parents who had cut her off after she stole from them. Once they had my money, I would become a burden to them. An expensive, inconvenient old woman they would have to feed and house. "I need time to think about this," I said, trying to pull my hand away from the pen. Daniel's face turned dark. There is no time, Mom. The bank closes in an hour. If you don't sign today, there could be legal problems. You could get in trouble. Legal problems? What legal problems? I hadn't done anything wrong. But Daniel said it with such authority, such confidence, that for a moment I almost believed him. That's how good he was at lying. That's how much practice he'd had manipulating me. What kind of legal problems? I asked. Rachel jumped in quickly. It's complicated, Margaret. Tax stuff. Government regulations. If you don't transfer this money today, you might have to pay huge penalties. I knew that was a lie. I had been managing my own money for 69 years. I had never had tax problems or penalties. But Daniel and Rachel were counting on me being scared and confused. They were counting on me trusting them more than my own judgment. Sign the papers, Mom, Daniel said, his voice getting harder. Stop being difficult. Difficult? I was being difficult for wanting to keep my own money? Daniel, this is everything I have. If I give you this money, I'll have nothing left for emergencies. Nothing for my own care when I get older. Daniel's mask finally slipped. For just a moment, I saw the real person underneath all those years of fake smiles and sweet words. Mom, let's be honest here, he said coldly. You're going to die soon anyway. You're 69 years old. What are you going to do with $50,000? Buy sports cars? Take fancy vacations? His words hit me like a slap in the face. Rachel and I are young, he continued. We have our whole lives ahead of us. We can use this money to build something, to create a future. You're just going to let it sit in the bank until you die, and then we'll inherit it anyway. Rachel nodded eagerly. We're not stealing from you, Margaret. We're just getting our inheritance a little early. Their inheritance? Their inheritance? This money wasn't their inheritance. This was MY life savings. Money I had earned through decades of hard work. Money Robert and I had saved by eating cheap food and wearing old clothes and never taking vacations. This was money I might need for medicine, for nursing care, for basic survival. But in Daniel's mind, it already belonged to him. You've had your whole life to enjoy money, Rachel added. Now it's our turn. I looked at my son, really looked at him, and saw a stranger. This wasn't the little boy I had raised. This wasn't the baby I had held and promised to protect. This was a predator. A person who saw his own mother as prey to be hunted and consumed. I'm not signing, I said quietly. Daniel's grip on my arm became painful. Yes, you are. Daniel, you're hurting me. Sign the papers, Mom. Now. Other people in the bank were starting to look at us. Daniel noticed and put his fake smile back on. We don't want to make a scene, do we? He said through gritted teeth. Just sign the papers, and we can all go home happy. But I wasn't going to have a home if I signed. I wasn't going to have anything. Please, I whispered one last time. Please don't do this to me. I'm your mother. I love you. I've given you everything I could my whole life. For just a second, I thought I saw something flicker in Daniel's eyes. Some tiny spark of the little boy who used to hug me and tell me I was the best mommy in the world. But Rachel squeezed his hand, and the spark died. Sign it, Daniel said flatly. Or we'll find another way. Another way? What did that mean? I thought about Robert's warnings. I thought about all the money I had already lost. I thought about being completely alone in the world with no resources and no one to help me. But then I thought about something else. I thought about Emma, Daniel's 6-year-old daughter from his first marriage. Sweet little Emma, who called me Grandma Maggie and drew me pictures with crayons. If Daniel could steal from his own mother, what would he do to Emma when she was older? What would he teach her about family and love and trust? I couldn't let that happen. I couldn't let Daniel win. I had spent 35 years saying yes to him. 35 years of giving him everything he wanted. But today, finally, I was going to say no. When Mr. Rodriguez walked over to our table, I knew it was my last chance. My hand shaking, I wrote that desperate note. Help. I'm being forced. I don't want to sign. As I slid the paper to him, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Hope. Mr. Rodriguez read the note, and his eyes went wide. He looked at me, then at Daniel and Rachel, then back at me. Without saying a word, he pressed the silent alarm button under his desk. Help was coming. For the first time in my life, someone was going to protect me. Daniel and Rachel had no idea what was about to happen to them. But I did. And for the first time in 35 years, I smiled a real smile. 2 minutes after Mr. Rodriguez pressed that silent alarm button, I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Heavy footsteps. Multiple pairs of them. Walking quickly toward our table. Daniel was still gripping my arm, still demanding I sign the papers. Rachel was checking her phone, probably calculating how they would spend my money. Neither of them noticed the 2 police officers approaching until it was too late. "Excuse me," said the first officer, a tall woman with kind eyes. "Is there a problem here?" Daniel's face went white. His grip on my arm loosened instantly. "No problem at all, officer," Daniel said with his fake smile. "Just family business. My mother was signing some routine paperwork." The officer looked at me carefully. "Ma'am, are you here voluntarily? Are you signing these papers of your own free will?" This was my moment, my chance to tell the truth. My voice was shaking, but it was strong. "No," I said clearly. "My son and his wife brought me here against my will. They're trying to force me to sign papers that would give them all my money." I wrote a note asking for help. Mr. Rodriguez stepped forward and handed the officer my note. "The lady slipped this to me. She's clearly in distress." The second officer, a younger man, looked at the documents on the table. His expression grew very serious. "These are financial power of attorney papers," he said. "If signed under duress, this would constitute elder abuse and financial fraud." Daniel jumped up from his chair. "This is ridiculous. I'm her son. I'm trying to help her manage her finances." "By forcing her?" the female officer asked. "Sir, I need you to step away from the table and keep your hands visible." Rachel tried to grab the papers, but the officer was faster. "Ma'am, don't touch those documents. They're evidence now." Evidence. The word made my heart sing. Finally, someone was taking this seriously. Finally, someone saw Daniel and Rachel for what they really were. "Officers, this is all a big misunderstanding," Rachel said sweetly. "Margaret is getting old. She gets confused sometimes. She called us and asked for help with her finances." "That's a lie," I said firmly. "They called me this morning and said it was urgent. They said I had to come to the bank today, or I would get in legal trouble." The officer took notes as I spoke. "And you didn't want to sign these papers?" "Never." I tried to refuse, but they held my arms down. "Look at my wrist. You can see the marks where they gripped me." The officer examined my wrist and took photos of the red marks Rachel had left. "Daniel Thompson and Rachel Thompson," the female officer said officially. "You're under arrest for attempted elder abuse, financial fraud, and assault." Daniel's mouth fell open. "You can't be serious. She's my mother." "That makes it worse, not better," the officer replied as she put handcuffs on Daniel's wrists. Watching my son get arrested should have made me sad. But instead, I felt something I hadn't felt in decades. Relief. As they led Daniel and Rachel away, Daniel turned and screamed at me. "You'll regret this, Mom. When you're old and sick and need help, don't come crying to us." His words bounced off me like raindrops. I was free. Mr. Rodriguez sat down next to me as the police car drove away. "Mrs. Thompson, are you all right? Can I get you some water?" "I'm better than I've been in years," I said honestly. "Thank you for believing me. Thank you for helping me." "Ma'am, what they were trying to do was criminal. I've seen this before. Adult children who think they're entitled to their parents' money." A few days later, I met with a lawyer named Mrs. Patterson. She was a specialist in elder abuse cases. "Margaret, what happened to you happens to thousands of older people every year," she explained. "Family members who use guilt, manipulation, and sometimes force to steal from elderly relatives." "What will happen to Daniel and Rachel?" "They'll likely face felony charges. Financial elder abuse is a serious crime. They could go to prison for several years." "Prison?" "My son might go to prison. A year ago, That thought would have destroyed me. I would have dropped the charges, given them the money, done anything to protect Daniel from consequences. But now I understood something important. Protecting Daniel from consequences had created this monster. Every time I said yes when I should have said no, I taught him that other people existed to serve his needs. I taught him that love meant giving him whatever he wanted. I had failed Daniel by spoiling him. But I wouldn't fail him again by letting him escape justice. I want to press full charges, I told Mrs. Patterson. 3 months later, Daniel and Rachel both pled guilty. Daniel got 2 years in prison. Rachel got 18 months. But the best part wasn't their punishment. The best part was getting my life back. With Mrs. Patterson's help, I got a restraining order against both of them. They couldn't contact me, couldn't come to my house, couldn't ask me for money ever again. I also got financial counseling. I learned about protecting my money, about recognizing manipulation, about the importance of saying no. Most importantly, I learned that love doesn't mean giving someone everything they want. Real love sometimes means saying no for their own good. 6 months after the arrest, I started volunteering at the senior center. I help other older people recognize financial abuse. I teach them the warning signs I should have seen years ago. If someone is rushing you to sign papers, I tell them, that's a red flag. If someone says, trust me, it's complicated, that's a red flag. If someone gets angry when you ask questions about your own money, that's a red flag. I've helped 12 families avoid what happened to me. 12 elderly people who learned to say no before it was too late. Last month, I got a letter from Daniel in prison. He wanted to apologize. He wanted to explain his behavior. He wanted me to visit him. I read the letter once, then threw it away. Some people might think that's harsh. They might say he's my son, and I should forgive him. But I've learned the difference between forgiveness and being a victim. I can forgive Daniel for what he did to me, but I don't have to give him another chance to do it again. I'm 70 years old now. I have my $50,000 back, plus the money the court ordered Daniel and Rachel to repay. I have my house. I have my independence. Most importantly, I have something I lost somewhere along the way. I have my voice. I have the power to say no. Emma, my granddaughter, visits me sometimes. She's 8 now, old enough to understand that her father made bad choices. Grandma Maggie, she asked me last week, why did Daddy try to take your money? I thought carefully before answering. Sometimes people think they deserve things they haven't earned. They think other people exist to give them what they want. That's not fair, Emma said.
No, it's not.
But now you know what to watch out for. If anyone ever tries to pressure you or force you to do something with your money, what will you say? Emma smiled. No, that's right, sweetheart. No is a complete sentence. You never have to explain why you're protecting yourself. If this story opened your eyes about elder abuse, please hit that like button and share it with someone who might need to hear this message. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength in the darkest moments. Remember, it's never too late to say no. It's never too late to protect yourself. And it's never too late to take back your power. Today, I live quietly in my little house. I tend my garden. I read books. I volunteer at the senior center. I'm not rich, but I'm not poor either. I'm not surrounded by people, but I'm not lonely either. Most importantly, I'm not afraid anymore. I spent 35 years being the woman who always said yes. Now I'm the woman who knows when to say no. And that has made all the difference. If this story inspired you and opened your eyes to the reality of elder abuse, please smash that like button. Your support helps these important stories reach more people who need to hear them. Share this story with your family and friends. You never know who might need this message of hope and courage. Every share could save someone from financial abuse. Subscribe and hit the notification bell for more powerful true stories about ordinary people finding extraordinary strength in their darkest moments. We share stories that matter, stories that change lives, stories that give hope. Tell us in the comments, have you ever had to find the courage to say no to family members? Your story could inspire someone else to find their voice. Remember, it's never too late to protect yourself. It's never too late to ask for help. And it's never too late to say no.